Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Oh, that's two awful intros in a row. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Front's right here. Hello. Hey, Speedy Rabbit. Oh my gosh. So it's been a day. It's been a crazy busy day. I was getting off Guardians of the Galaxy not even an hour ago, but I was parked at Studio, so I had to run over. And then I was like, on the way home, I was like, I'm really hungry. So I stopped and I got food on the way home. I was like, you know what? I was going to swing through. There's a Chick-fil-A right around the corner. I was like, I'm just going to swing through Chick-fil-A. And then I got home like 8 minutes ago. I'm almost done with my sandwich. And I accidentally hit go live as I was like, and then I was like, oh my gosh. So we went live like 5 minutes ago. So I apologize if you joined in and you're like, where'd he go? Because I deleted the broadcast because it was chaos. It was pure chaos. And now I'm kind of wishing that I never would have gotten rid of it because it was actually very, very funny. But how's everyone doing? I'm going to take my last 2 bites of my food here. Are you guys doing well? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there. Tonight we're going to be talking about Liberty Square in honor of the 4th of July being tomorrow. So if you want to hear a lot about the 4th of July, or not about the 4th of July, if you want to hear a lot about Liberty Square, make sure you join us. Make sure you stick around for the whole thing. I'm gonna finish up my last few bites after the show here. We're just gonna seal that up. Lunch and learn with Brent. I like that idea. Whew. And those are spicy chicken sandwiches. So all of a sudden my nose starts like dripping. I do apologize, but I need a little spicy in my latte. I don't know what that was. But yeah, so how's everyone doing? Are you guys doing good? Hopefully everyone's doing good. We do have the 4th of July tomorrow if you are in the United States. If you're not in the United States, it's still July 4th. So, still a day. But tonight what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through and talking about Liberty Square in honor of the 4th of July. And it also got me thinking about all of the great shows that we have done throughout the years on the 4th of July. Like we've actually done a lot of crazy things on the 4th of July and a lot of episodes around the 4th of July. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just being reminiscent right now. It's going to be 12 years as of tomorrow where I met one of my best friends in the world. We met on the 4th of July at Epcot, and we actually spent the entire day together, and now we are still friends, and I was in their wedding. So, yeah, who knew? Who knew? Hello, and happy 4th. Is that the same tiger as usual? I don't know if it is or not. Okay, so let's get this party started. We are going to start the 776. Oh, what? Wait a minute. 1776 is the what? Oh, that's kind of weird. We're going to start the 776th episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 776th episode of the Wednesday show. Ironically, the 1776 was the year that America was founded, and tomorrow is the 4th of July. So, of course, we're going to be talking all about Liberty Square in honor of the 4th of July, and in honor, let's just pretend like we planned this all along, and in honor of the fact that this is the 776th episode. So, before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. So, we don't have a lot of news for this week. It's been like a crazy week. I've got a few friends who are in town, and I've been going nonstop. So if there's any Disney news out there that I missed, send it to me, because I really have not. We had Tiana's Bayou Adventure open up. If you've not watched our video yet on that, make sure you go check that out. And that's the only thing that's happened. There's nothing else that has happened around Walt Disney World over the last few weeks. I'm sure there is, and I just am drawing a big blank on what it was. But that's going to be all we're going to say is the only thing that's actually happened today. So, in addition to that, thank you everyone who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday right over on my YouTube channel, we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You never know where we're going to be broadcasting from, but I promise you we will always be coming to you live from Disney. So make sure you join us every single Saturday for that. And of course, as always, Tonight, we will go into extra innings if our numbers continue to grow. And right now, we are starting off at 7,540 subscribers. We did hit our 7,500 subscriber this week. So thank you, everyone out there who has been spreading the word and sending your friends over to subscribe. Every single subscriber helps us get a little bit closer to our next goal. Our next big goal, 8,000, but our bigger goal than that is 10,000. So let's try to hit 10,000, hopefully by the end of this month. Will it happen? I don't know, but let's give it a shot, and hopefully we can hit 10,000 by the end of the month. And of course, as always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our I'm so far behind with everything. Patreon pals. They are really awesome. In the chat, say, oh yeah, because you are so awesome. Oh, wait, if you're a Patreon pal, give us an oh yeah in the chat room. So everyone can be like, oh man, those guys are Patreon pals. I want to be a Patreon pal too. Oh yeah, the store ever after changed from a jewelry store to an amazing fun store with build your own ears and all the 90th Donald merch. I have not had the opportunity to go there yet, but I do want to check it out. I have been seeing a lot of people going around with the build your own ears, and they look really, really cool. I want to bring my niece when she comes next. I just don't know when she comes next. And there's our Patreon pals are signing off in the chat room there. Thank you, Patreon pals. It literally would not be possible without you guys. So thank you so much for being Patreon pals. Okay, so let's talk about Liberty Square. Today we're going to talk about the history of Liberty Square. We're going to do a walkthrough of Liberty Square. We're going to point out some of my favorite fun facts in Liberty Square. And we will, of course, do a little bit of talking about each specific attraction, the food, the merchandise, and of course, the transitions. Because there are two, not one, but two amazing transitions. And then a third transition, which is pretty good, but it's not my favorite transition found throughout the entire Walt Disney World Resort. But the other two are both two of my top favorite transitions that you find anywhere in Walt Disney World. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Liberty Square first, because when it comes to historical things, there are very few things at Disney that have been sticking around since the very start. Hello, Candace. By the way, Patreon pal. Oh yeah. So there have been very, very few things that have been around since the very start. And when you look at different lands like Frontierland, up until about a week ago, we had everything in Frontierland was not original except for the Frontierland Shooting Arcade. That's now gone. Country Bear Jamboree will be coming back, but it's not going to be the original show. So it's original, but not quite original. Same thing with like Enchanted Tiki Room was around, but it was Tropical Serenade. And we also had things like the Swiss Family Treehouse and the Jungle Cruise, but things like Pirates of the Caribbean wasn't around. Aladdin's Magic Carpets wasn't around. Tomorrowland, completely different than what it was originally. We still have the Speedway, and that is about it. And up at Fantasyland, we've had a lot of changes. We've also had a lot of things that have stayed the same. But then if you go to Liberty Square has been solid and true since 1972. Well, 1971, but it didn't rhyme, so I said 1972. So if you go back to the opening day of the Magic Kingdom back on October 1st, 1971, there is very little things that you could find inside of Liberty Square that would not be around still to this day. If I need more of my water. Right. So we're going to go through a quick history lesson. And of course, it's me, so it's going to turn into a very exaggerated history lesson. But we're going to go into a history lesson nonetheless. So back in the 1950s, Walt Disney created a magical place called Disneyland. We all love it. We all know it. We all want to be there right now. But inside of Disneyland, he had all these different ideas for future projects. Some of them came to be things like New Orleans Square, and other things never actually happened. Things like a little place called Liberty Street. Now, Liberty Street was going to be a little road that went off of Main Street, USA. So think about like just a little bit south of where we have Tomorrowland go. That was going to be Liberty Street. And if it was not for this, by the way, fun fact, we probably wouldn't have had Space Mountain because Space Mountain took the spot that was going to be Liberty Street. Now, Liberty Street was going to be filled with a lot of amazing things. You're going to have the caller, the person's going around going, "Hitty, hitty, welcome to Liberty Street, where you can buy a nacho for $50. And then they would also have other very historical things like they didn't have. Well, they're going to have the caller. I just made up the nacho part. they're also going to have it so you would go through and you would have things like the Liberty Bell was going to be there, and then there's going to be different things where it was going to be a little historical walkthrough of the history of America. But the crowning achievement of it all was going to be a little attraction, which was going to be called the Hall of Presidents. It was a great idea. It was a marvelous idea, but there was just a few problems. And the biggest problem was we did not have the technology to make a bunch of presidents come alive yet. We did not have the idea of audio animatronics. So the idea of the animatronics would not come around for another about 3 or 4 years when we opened up the Enchanted Tiki Room. Not under new management, just the original one. And the Enchanted Tiki Room paved the way for different animatronic features. Now, shortly after the Enchanted Tiki Room, I'm so frazzled. If you're coming in right now, and it shows that we've got some people who are popping in right now, I was literally on Guardians of the Galaxy like an hour ago. And I parked at Hollywood Studios, so I had to run from the front of Epcot all the way to the studios and then make my way home. And I was also hungry because I hadn't had any food for a long time. So I was like, oh, I better run through drive-thru. And I literally got in here like 3 minutes before the show started. So I do apologize. I haven't even gone to the bathroom since before Guardians of the Galaxy. And I kind of have to go, but we're going to hold off. I can make it through this whole episode because I don't have to go that bad. That was way too much information. I apologize for those people who just left because we did lose a few people in that explanation. But anyways, so we were going to have it. So there was going to be this thing called Hall of Presidents. And then, of course, Enchanted Tiki Room created the idea of animatronics. Now, the next year in the 1964 World's Fair, we would go through and we would have more and more information going through of how to create these animatronics, which resulted in the 1964 World's Fair. Now, the 1964 World's Fair was not a Disney exclusive thing. However, it is the thing that we mostly know as a, really big turning point for for Disney company, because they created a lot of different animatronics, including things like It's a Small World dolls, and of course the Carousel of Progress, our first human actors, and of course the other human actor, which would be Abraham Lincoln. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but what happened was when Walt Disney was going through and trying to create brand new things for the Walt Disney World's Fair, or not the Walt Disney World's Fair, the World's Fair in 1964, he was going through and trying to find different sponsors for the different pavilions that would actually help pay for these projects to be done. And so what would happen is these people would give all the money to the project. They would go through, make a great attraction, and then they would take that attraction and bring it to Disneyland after the fair was over. So they would get all this money from it. And one of the people that they reached out to would be the state of Illinois, because the state of Illinois was going to actually have a pavilion. And they didn't really know what was going to be in the pavilion, but they knew that they're going to have a pavilion, and they wanted to work on this pavilion and have it so it would come to life in some way, shape, or form. And Walt Disney, being a massive, massive fan of Abraham Lincoln, and of course, being born in Chicago, Illinois. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Marceline, Missouri. Well, he moved to Marceline, Missouri when he was like 2 or 3. But he was born in Chicago, Illinois. And when he was born in Chicago, Illinois, of course, part of his, founding father history was being in love with Abraham Lincoln. They were both born in the same state. So when he was growing up, he would actually go through and he would put on a top hat. He would also put on a fake beard every single year on Abraham Lincoln's birthday and recite the Gettysburg Address to all of his classmates. So to kind of pay tribute to his growing up and his love of Abraham Lincoln, he decided that what we would have is a show where Abraham Lincoln would stand up and he would recite the Gettysburg Address. Great idea. Walt did it. Abraham Lincoln did it. Both times, huge hit. We might as well do it again by combining the two in animatronic form. So they went through and they said, okay, we're going to give you all this money and you guys can figure this out. And Walt Disney, of course, thinking in the back of his head was, well, we also have this other idea. Of course, he's not going to tell him this, but we also have this other idea that not only one president will be here, but hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds, but tens. It's not as dramatic. Hundreds of presidents are going to be up on the stage. And if we're going to have all these different presidents up on the stage, we need to figure out exactly how this technology works. So they created, of course, the one, the only Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. Now, with this done, the idea of Liberty Street had not died yet completely. However, when they were starting to go through different ideas of how to make Liberty Street happen, they were also working on plans for Walt Disney World. Now, Walt Disney World originally was going to be a futuristic city. Of course, we all know that. Epcot stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. But in addition to that, they were going to have a theme park at the top, which would be the Magic Kingdom. So they were working on plans for the Magic Kingdom at this point. And one of the ideas that they had was the idea put in place by what Liberty Street was. And of course, we couldn't have Liberty Street, but we could have a Liberty Square. So through all this tossing and turning, we eventually got to what would become Liberty Square when the Magic Kingdom would first open up. Now, when Magic Kingdom first opened up, we had 3 attractions that would be around. We had the Liberty Bell Riverboat. At that time, it was going to be called the Admiral Joe Fowler, still around to this day. We also had the Haunted Mansion, still around to this day. And we would also have the Hall of Presidents, the thing that kind of paved the way to making Liberty Square in the very first place. Again, still around to this day. But that was not going to be the only starring attractions in this amazing land. We were also going to have amazing food, hands down, literally. Like my favorite restaurant in the Magic Kingdom is in Liberty Square. Probably one of my favorite quick service restaurants, also in Liberty Square. And not only that, but we're also going to have amazing details that help tell the story of America. And that, my friends, is a long introduction for what we're going to get into tonight. Because right now, we're going to go through and we're going to talk all about Liberty Square. Now, also, I would like to point out that we have gone up a total of -2 subscribers. We've lost 2 people. It's probably those 2 people who left when I started talking about how I hadn't gone to the bathroom. So please come back. Baby, come back. Okay. While we go through here, if you guys have any questions, make sure you throw the questions into the comments, and I will go through and answer as many questions as possible. I am also going to give you a heads up that I am going to open up this book right here. If you've never read it, it's an amazing book. It's called A Closer Look at the Magic Kingdom's Liberty Square, and it's written by me. What? Look at those names. They match up. But I'm going to open this up just as a reference because I know for a fact that there's going to be things that I forgot, and that's why I wrote them down. Okay. So let's start off at the very beginning, because there are 3 different spots that we could start off in Liberty Square. There is the one going from Frontierland to Liberty Square. There's one from Fantasyland to Liberty Square. And there's also the one from Main Street USA to Liberty Square. And I think, without further ado, let's start off from Main Street USA to Liberty Square. Because going from one land to another land does have a lot of different details that need to be put into place. However, the one that is here is one of the ones that most people just don't really pay attention to. Because when you go into Tomorrowland, you cross a bridge. When you go into Fantasyland, you go over a moat. When you go over Adventureland, you go across a bridge. And here you go across a bridge as well. However, unlike these other ones, this bridge actually has historical reference, because this bridge is going to be a pretty close reproduction of a bridge that was the start of the Revolutionary War. Now, the way that the Revolutionary War started was there were 2 sides on this other side of a bridge. Now, these 2 sides were opposing forces. One of them was going to be the British, and the other one's going to be the British as well. And I know what you're thinking, that doesn't sound right. No, it doesn't sound right at all, but it actually is 100% true, because the Revolutionary War was not about people trying to become American citizens. At that time, they did not have the idea of becoming American citizens. They were just trying to fight off this tax problems. And so these people actually refer to themselves as British citizens as well, even when they were fighting. But the people who were the army for the British, they were referred to as redcoats, because guess what? That's right, they wore blue coats. No, they were redcoats. So because they were redcoats, they would refer to them as redcoats during all of their battles. So these 2 opposing forces are on either side of this bridge, and they were all stocked up, ready to fight, but both generals were holding. Hold! Hold! No one's going to fight each other. No one's going to take a shot. Nothing's going to happen. Maybe, just maybe, we can have it so there is peace and harmony in this brand new land called America. And then something happened. No one still to this day knows exactly who took the shot, but someone accidentally took a shot. It is documented as an accidental shot in history. But when this person accidentally took a shot, war broke out and the Revolutionary War began. It is known as the shot heard around the world, and the bridge that it took place at is it's been reproduced here, entering into Liberty Square. So that's going to be our first little historical route as we go from Main Street USA into Liberty Square. But once we cross that bridge, we've got so many different details that are inside. So let's start off on the right-hand side. So when you're walking in on your right-hand side, you will find our first restaurant, one of 3, which is going to be the Sleepy Hollow restaurant. And I know you're thinking, Sleepy Hollow sounds like a marvelous place. Well, if you've ever gone back in Disney history, maybe back in 1949, you might have seen a film called The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And I know, yes, we all know Mr. Toad. I'm merrily, 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 merrily on my way to nowhere in particular. So in 1949, Disney released this package film taking place of the Sleepy Hollow story along with the Mr. Toad story, or the Wind in the Willows. And what they did was they wanted to have it so it was the two most famous stories from the British point of view and from the American point of view. And the two best stories they could come up with was The Wind in the Willows and Sleepy Hollow. Now, Sleepy Hollow was written by Washington Irving, and Washington Irving had a place called the Sunnyvale. Pretty sure it's Sunnyvale. Past Brent, teach me what I am. Sunnyside. Sunnyside. It was Sunnyside. Sunnyside was the location where Washington Irving would actually go through and write his different stories, and that's where he took up residency. So when you go across and you have Sleepy Hollow on the right-hand side, there are a few different references to the legend of the Headless Horseman and Sleepy Hollow in the restaurant or at the restaurant. The main two ones are going to be on both sides of the thing. You can find different signs that say Sleepy Hollow, and both of them feature the Headless Horseman. I know you're thinking, okay, not a really cool detail. And you're right, it's not that cool of a detail. However, the actual building itself of Sleepy Hollow is a complete reproduction, well, not complete reproduction, but a very similar reproduction of what Sunnyside, Washington Irving, the author of Sleepy Hollow's actual house looked like. So if you go into New York to Sunnyside, that house looks exactly like a restaurant that you would find in Liberty Square. Now, right across the way, you can find another reference to the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and that's going to be found at Ye Olde Christmas Shop. Now, Ye Olde Christmas Shop is the third? It's the third Christmas shop that can be found at the Magic Kingdom. There once was one in Fantasyland. There was once one at Main Street, USA. And then, of course, we also have Ye Olde Christmas Shop that has been going strong for quite some time here at the Magic Kingdom. But when you go inside of Ye Olde Christmas Shop, there are 3 different storylines that are going on, and most people just walk through the restaurant or through the gift shop looking for souvenirs and not looking for details. And those people, I say, shame on you, because there are so many amazing storylines that you can find inside of Ye Olde Christmas Shop. Now, if you go on the outside, it's easier to see than if you go into the inside. However, you can see the storylines taking place on both sides. So let's start off on the outside and then work our way into the inside of the gift shop. Now, if you look at the outside of Ye Olde Christmas Shop, you will notice that there are 3 completely distinct buildings that make up the amazing gift shop that is Ye Olde Christmas Shop. If you look on the far left, the one that's closest to the bridge that we just talked about, there is a very distinct outside pattern. The one in the middle has a completely different outside pattern, and then the one on the right that's closest to the Liberty Tree also has a very distinct pattern. So if you look at these 3 distinct patterns and you take a look on the outside of each door, you will find the owners of each door. Now, the one that is closest to Sleepy Hollow is actually owned by one and only Ichabod Crane. Now, Ichabod Crane is the music teacher that is found in the Sleepy Hollow segment of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And on the outside, you can see that it says music lessons. Now, if you actually go inside of this room and you look up on the top of the shelves, you can find different musical instruments, different musical sheets, and so many other references that are just paying tribute to the fact that this is a music teacher's house. Now, if you go back outside and go to the middle section, you will find a little carving of a rocking horse. And on that rocking horse, it says Woodwright. It's the Woodwright family. The Woodwright family, when it's the right business, because they are making wood or, carpentry level ideas. So if you go inside of that middle shop or the middle section of the shop and you take a look at the top, you can find different things like rocking horses. You can find different things like teddy bears, different things that would be wood carvings or creations of toys that this family might sell. Again, we've got 2 houses here, and now we're going to go to the third, because the third one is probably the most unique, the most amazing, and the most overlooked one of all, because Woodwright, it kind of, it stands for itself. Ichabod Crane, if you know the story, you know who he is. But the one that's closest to the Liberty Tree, you can find is the Keppel family. Now, the Keppel family, if you go inside, there are all different things like seamstress things. There are things like mattresses that have been created. There's different blankets that have been created, but everything in there is things that have been created by hand that are for wearing or for comfort items. However, that's not important. The most important thing is the name Keppel, because the name Keppel actually pays tribute to someone who's not worked on anything in the Disney parks. They've never worked on the Disney parks. In fact, they never even lived long enough to see the Disney parks become a reality. In fact, if you go back in time, this person created something that was amazing, and that was Elias. Elias Disney was the son of Keppel Disney, and of course, Elias Disney is the father of Walt Disney. So the name Keppel is actually a reference to Walt Disney's grandfather on the Disney side. This is actually not the only time that you can find the Keppel reference found throughout the Magic Kingdom. There are actually a few other spots that you can find the references to Keppel, but this is probably one of the most unique, the most kind of obvious, or not obvious, but the ones that like sits there and stares at you in the face, and most people walk by going, Keppel, ha ha ha. But this is going to be a reference to Keppel Disney. So getting out of Yield Christmas Shop, right outside there, we have the tree, which I've referenced a few times already. Let's start off by talking about this tree. Now, this tree is going to be the Liberty Tree. And on the Liberty Tree, there are going to be 13 distinct lanterns representing each one of the 13 original colonies. So if you go there, you can see that each one of them represents things like New York or Massachusetts or New Jersey or Connecticut or Pennsylvania. I don't know the rest. I don't know the 13 original colonies off the top of my head. Maryland, Delaware. Can I get all of them? I don't know. Virginia, Carolina, North. Was it North and South? I don't know. Someone in the chat room, if you know the 13 original colonies, write them down. But anyways, here we have a reference to the 13 original colonies of the United States plastered there in lantern form. But that's not going to be the only fun fact about this tree. Now, if you go on the part of the tree that's facing towards Yield Christmas Shop or facing towards the Liberty Bell, you may notice a little different colorification. There's like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a square. There's the wood. I feel so bad because we just had two people logging on and we're going to lose them. And we just lost one. There's little square poles or square pegs on both sides that are a different color. Colorification? They're discolored. I think discolored is the word I'm looking for. They're discolored compared to the rest of the tree. And the reason that they're discolored from the rest of the tree is because when they were creating Walt Disney World, one of the things that Walt Disney wanted was the idea of a Liberty Tree inside of Liberty Square. Now, if you've gone back in time and watched a lot of the old live action films, there is one that you may have seen, but most likely most of you guys have missed. And that is a film called Johnny Tremaine. And in Johnny Tremaine, it actually tells the real life story of a person who helped Paul Revere along with a lot of the other founding fathers. And he was part of the lighting of the old church to let them know if the redcoats were coming by land or if they're coming by sea. But that's not important right now. What's important is in this film, they did something that is actually represented in a lot of different towns back when they were trying to overthrow the redcoats. And that was meeting at a Liberty Tree. And they would actually have a song called "In the Old Oak Tree, in the Old Oak Tree. We are the sons of liberty." And actually, when you're walking around the Liberty Square, there's different music that plays, just like everywhere else in Walt Disney World property. But one of the songs that actually plays an instrumental version is that song, the Liberty Tree song that you can find in Johnny Tremaine. If you've not seen Johnny Tremaine, I do recommend it. It is a very, very well done film, and it makes you want to learn more about exactly what happened during all those things way back in the day. But let's carry on. Because right next to the Liberty Tree is the Liberty Bell with an actual crack in it, but the crack is not real at all. But at the same time, if you are friends with me, or if you've ever taken a tour with me, most likely I tell you, yeah, the crack, like they dropped the bell just like they dropped the original Liberty Bell, caused a crack in the exact same spot, and then I make people go up close to it, and they're like, oh, it's not a crack. It's just a fake crack. But this Liberty Bell is a very real Liberty Bell. And the reason it is a very real Liberty Bell is the fact that when Disney was actually going through and creating Liberty Square, there was something that was going on in America at that time where the people who actually created the original Liberty Bell, that actually casted the original Liberty Bell, they decided to make 50 extra Liberty Bells. I know it seems, kind of crazy, but at the same time, they decided to create 50 other Liberty Bells and give each Liberty Bell to a different state. So some states actually ended up giving their Liberty Bells to a different state, and some states kept the Liberty Bell for their own, righteous well-being. So some states actually have multiple Liberty Bells, other states have 0 Liberty Bells, but one of the actual Liberty Bells from America, from the actual United States government, is the one that you can find there inside of Liberty Square. It was actually cast from the exact same cast as the original Liberty Bell that let freedom ring. In addition to that, if you take a look up around the Liberty Bell, you can find 14 flags. 13 of them stand for the 13 original colonies, and then the 14th one is going to be the original flag for the United States of America. But turning around and going behind us, well, in my mind, we were facing towards the front of Liberty Bell, so just ignore that if you're on the back side of it. Maybe go around the Liberty Bell and just go straight. But behind me, in my mind of where we were, we have the Hall of Presidents. Now, the Hall of Presidents, we're going to take a few minutes here going through and talking about it. Yes, the one that was from here is actually from Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of different, because there is two in Florida. One of them is the one from Pennsylvania, and then the other Liberty Bell is actually up in the Capitol, I want to say. I'm pretty sure it's at the Capitol building or outside the Capitol building. There's quite a few capitals that have the bell hanging out inside of it. But yes, good call. So carrying on, let's talk a little bit. And by the way, yeah, keep throwing the questions out there. I know a few people out there are probably just like mesmerized by all the useless knowledge that goes into my head and are thinking either this is fascinating or how on earth does this guy remember all this, or a combination of the two. So let's go to the Hall of Presidents. Keep on throwing your questions out there. Now, the Hall of Presidents is supposed to be a reproduction of what the actual where the actual signing of the Declaration of Independence actually occurred at, but that's not what we're going to focus on. We're actually going to go inside of the building and take a look around, because there's so many different cool things inside of this building that need to be paid tribute to. Now, the first one is going to be on the ground when you first walk in. There is the presidential seal of the United States of America. There is only 3 carpets in the world that have the presidential seal for the United States of America. And one of them is here, one of them is at the White House, and one of them is in the Oval Office, and the other one is going to be at the Capitol building. So Disney actually had to get special permission to be able to create this actual seal and have it so it's placed here for everyone in the world to see. Overall, really, really cool fun fact. If you go into the Hall of Presidents, one of the main things why I tell people sometimes it's important to vote is because if you want to have it so you update an attraction every 4 years guaranteed, you can switch the president every 4 years, and then you get a brand new attraction. But at the same time, there's been people who've told me in the past, I've had some of my workers tell me that I should run for president. I've had a few people on here who've told me I should run for president. I've always said there is no way in the world that I would ever want to run for president. But then I also think it'd be really cool to have an animatronic of myself at the Hall of Presidents. So this November, if you're looking for someone to vote for, Brent Dodge. Just so I can have an animatronic myself. That's the only reason. But I would like resign from the job after 2 days. Be like, okay, I'm going back to Disney. I don't even know if I can go 2 days without the parks. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. Let's go into Hall of Presidents, because we're not going to go into too much detail about it because we kind of went through the history of it. But what I do want to point out is a few different fun facts inside of the actual attraction. So while you're actually inside the attraction, you can find every single president from George Washington all the way up to Joe Biden up on the stage. Someone's shooting fireworks outside. It's not July 4th yet, but these people are probably listening to the show and they're like, oh, that guy's being patriotic right now, and we should be too. Hey. But not right now, people. We're trying to put on a show. So anyways, you have every single president from George Washington all the way up to Joe Biden. It did not start until the 1980s, where we actually had it so every single current president was talking, and now we have it so it's a recurring thing, which I personally really think is 1992. It was when Bill Clinton became president. But right now we have Joe Biden along with George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are the 3 presidents that actually talk during the show. If you go through and you look at a lot of the different things that the people are wearing, or the things that they have on, or the watches they're wearing, a lot of these things are actually owned or were owned by the actual presidents, including everything that you can find inside of the main lobby of the attraction. There are so many different artifacts in there. They are all authentic artifacts, unless it states otherwise on the plaque. But like 99% of the stuff is actual authentic things. Like the dresses in there are actually owned by Martha Washington. The other day I was there, and George Bush's boots were in there. So you've got a lot of different things that are in there, and they're actually owned and authentically owned and created for the presidents of the United States. But in addition to all the stuff that they might have on them, one of my favorite details, and it's actually made my short on YouTube tomorrow, as long as I can make it kind of work, is one of my favorite details of all time, and it deals with the 4th of July. So while you were inside of the Hall of Presidents, if you go to the very bottom left of the entire theater, so when you enter in, you just go down to the first row and you don't go all the way down. You just go stay at the end. The best way to do this is if you just wait in the lobby and have it so you're one of the last people to enter into the theater. You can almost always get the seat. There's been like one time where I've not gotten the seat and it was kind of weird. I was like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm the only person who ever wants to sit in the spot. But you can go down in that spot. And so when all the presidents are on stage, you can take a look at the far corner, the complete opposite corner of you. It's the only spot that you can really see it. And there is a clock that's there. This clock is always set to 7:04. And a lot of people say, oh, because that's when the Declaration of Independence was signed. No, it's because 7:04 is also could be read as July 04 or the 4th of July, Independence Day. Let's head out of this. Or actually, before we leave Hall of Presidents, one of my favorite little details inside the Hall of Presidents is when you actually leave the Hall of Presidents. On one side, you've got an Abraham Lincoln painting. On the other side, you have an Abraham Lincoln painting. And then in the middle, you've got Benjamin Franklin. Never a president, but for some reason, he's there. And it's always baffled me. I asked Imagineers, and they didn't even know. But anyways, he's just kind of hanging out. So let's go out and around and head up towards Fantasyland. On the way, we are going to be going past the little market area. When we go past the market area, when we go past the market area, there are three things, again, that we should pay attention to. One, we've got a little doll that's very, very creepy, and a lot of people have always pointed out to me that she's a very creepy doll, and they want to know exactly who she is. And I just tell them it's a creepy doll. It's a doll that would have been actually used in those times. So it's not like a Barbie. It's just a creepy little doll. Fun fact. Number two, right after the creepy doll, up on the second floor, you can find a window, and in that window there is a musket that's going across the window. This is actually an indication to people who are going and rebelling against the Redcoats and saying, hey, if you need someone to fight, I'm here to fight too. So they would place a rifle inside of their window. So while they're going through and trying to, rally up the troops, they'd say, oh, this person's willing to fight too. They would knock on the door. That guy would grab his rifle and they would go off to go fight the Redcoats. And number three, which is probably one of my favorite details anywhere in Walt Disney World, like not just Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney World, one of my favorite details is in the circular area. So there's like a spot that kind of like it's a circle. It's like a cylinder that's coming out of the wall. You'll find a window on the second floor, and in this window during the day you can find two lanterns kind of hanging there, just not lit. This is actually a reference to Paul Revere, because the midnight ride of Paul Revere took place at night, and as the story goes, they would hang one lantern up in the Old North Church if the Redcoats were coming by land, and two if they were coming by sea. So at night, you can go there and you can get a history lesson on whether or not they came during the land or sea. And at night, you can see that both of them are lit because the Redcoats did, in fact, come by sea. Going on to our next area is the Columbia Harbor House. Now, the Columbia Harbor House, we're going to stop and reverse a second because we've talked about transitions and we want to talk about another transition right now. So the Columbia Harbor House is one of the most unique restaurants in Walt Disney World, because not only is it an amazing restaurant with amazing food, like no joke, I actually really, really like the food at Columbia Harbor House. It is also one of the only restaurants on a Disney World property that takes place in not just one, but two. That's right, two different lands, because there's part of it in Fantasyland and there's another part of it in Liberty Square. And why on earth is that? Well, let me tell you. So there is a transition here that is one of the most amazing transitions anywhere in Walt Disney World. It is hands down my favorite transition in all of Walt Disney World, but we're going to talk about it right now, because if you've never heard me talk about it, you need to hear it. And if you haven't heard me talk about it, I do apologize, but at the same time, people always love this one. So when you are going from Fantasyland, which is set in the 1400s, medieval times, 1200s, around there, you are in a place that is, one, in Europe, and two, where most people don't know how to read. So when you're on the Columbia Harbor House side, you are in a place where just, writing isn't that common of a thing. And so if you look at the menu, hanging above the menu, there is a picture of, or a statue of a chicken holding onto a fish, to indicate to the people who are walking by that the food here is chicken and fish. It's the two main things here. So when you're there, you're looking at this harbor, or Columbia Harbor House, with the chicken and fish. And then when you go through the little breezeway On the other side, you find another Columbia Harbor House. Same place, but still, it's a different place. And if you look at that sign, it says Columbia Harbor House, and then underneath it says chicken, fish, sandwiches, indicating what is there. Because now we have traveled not across the sea. Well, we did come across the sea, but we've also come across time periods. And we've time traveled to a place where more people know how to read. So instead of having little statues showing us that it's chicken and fish, now we can actually read, hey, chicken, fish, sandwiches. Hey, I want to eat here. And then people can go inside. So we are traveling from one harbor in Europe to the other harbor in America. And then we're also traveling from one harbor in the past to the current harbor, or not current, but the other harbor that takes place in 1700s. So a really cool transition from one side to another. Also, while we were here, let's talk a little bit about the bathrooms. I know you were thinking, Brent, you were talking about the bathrooms earlier, and we were discussing. Well, guess what? You're going to be discussing for a few more seconds, and that's okay, because restrooms everywhere in Walt Disney World are very unique. They have a lot of personality, or they have no personality at all, because some cases, we don't have bathrooms at all. And one of those cases is here in Liberty Square. Now, in Liberty Square, we did not have any restrooms. Restrooms just did not exist at that time period. In fact, people would go through and they would go to the bathroom in a bucket and they would throw that bucket out the window and they'd have a stream of filth going down the street. In fact, if you go down Liberty Square, you will see that there's a red pavement all around the area, but then there's also a cobble pavement, I don't know how to say that, but like a little path that's like more of rocks and stuff to represent the sewage going down the street. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Brent, we're talking about Columbia Harbor House, and you just said there's no bathrooms, but there's bathrooms in Columbia Harbor House. Yes, there are, but they're on the Fantasyland side. So when you're actually inside that area, you are going to a bathroom that's in Fantasyland, which I know doesn't make sense either, because back in medieval times, they wouldn't have had bathrooms either, but ignore that fact for a second. So when you go to those bathrooms, you're actually technically going to the bathroom in Fantasyland. And now I know you're also thinking, haha, I got one on you, because there is another bathroom that I have used inside of Liberty Square on the second floor of the Liberty Tree Tavern. Well, aren't you the spicy little one tonight? But guess what? You are wrong there too, because when they did the construction of Liberty Tree Tavern, that bathroom was actually attached to the the Adventureland side. And if you go to the back hall of that, it's actually part of the Veranda restaurant, which is no longer there, but now it is part of the Jungle Navigation restaurant. So if you go to the top of that bathroom, on the back side of it is actually part of Adventureland, meaning that it is actually an Adventureland bathroom and not a Liberty Square bathroom. And then I know what other people are thinking. Well, I know one more bathroom that is there, and I'm thinking, haha, you are 100% right, and that bathroom actually is in Liberty Square. And now what you're thinking is, I've said like I know what you're thinking like 100 times tonight. But the other bathroom is one that only cast members would have used. And that is actually me. There is a bathroom that's on the second floor of the Haunted Mansion. And that one is the only one that's authentically, completely, with no excuses inside of Liberty Square. Just guests can't use it. I cleaned it before when I was a cast member. So that's how I know about it. Okay, so we've gone through Harbor House. Let's go next door to Memento Mori's. Memento Mori's, it does not have a lot of cool things anymore. They had a few really cool details in the past. One, they had the smallest hidden Mickey found in Walt Disney World. There's a lot of people who have argued with me saying, no, the one in Adventureland's smaller. I put my thumb against both of them in the same day. One is like half my thumb and the other one's like my thumb. So this one is smaller. Actually, it might even be a quarter of my thumb. So just a little fun fact. It is the smallest hidden Mickey in Walt Disney World currently that anyone's found. In addition to that little detail, we also have it so if you go through, it's about every minute, the painting will change. And we'll have it so some things are lit up. There's like a little black light that shines on the painting. And then we'll also have it so Madame Leota's face appears in the mirror, again, about every minute. So while you're in the restaurant or in the gift shop, there's a few little creepy things. Going around to Memento Mori is another classic attraction that has been around since opening day, and that is, of course, the one and only Haunted Mansion. Now, we could go on for literally hours, and we have gone on for hours about Haunted Mansion. So we're not going to go into too much detail about Haunted Mansion right now, but we will talk about a few little fun facts with this amazing attraction, mainly dealing with the idea of going to Liberty Square. Now, first off, if you've gone over to Disneyland's Haunted Mansion, you may have noticed that that building is completely different than the building that is found here at at Magic Kingdom, and that's because the one that's over in Disneyland is set in New Orleans Square, so it is a New Orleans style mansion. And then the other one that is found here in Magic Kingdom is supposed to be up in the Northeast, so it's actually based on an actual mansion that is found in upstate New York. So they still both pay tribute to their respective areas. In fact, if you go through, there are different rumors about the mansion on how the architecture style, some of it was inspired by the Imagineers, and then other people say, no, that was actually part of the original design. And then other people just make up completely different stories. So we're not going to go into all those crazy things, but let's do a few little fun facts real quickly about the Haunted Mansion. So when the Haunted Mansion was being created, it came out in 1971, but the original Haunted Mansion would open up in 1969 over in Disneyland. So this was actually the very first time ever that Disney created duplicates of everything, because they were building the Haunted Mansion for Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion for Walt Disney World at the exact same time. They knew that they were going to be opening up both of the attractions at a similar time period. So when you're going through and you look at a lot of the things inside of the Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World, you might be like, oh, this looks almost exactly as it is in Disneyland. That's because it was created the exact same day as the one that was in Disneyland was created as well. In addition to that, this one is a little bit longer than the one that's in Disneyland, and this is mainly due to the fact that the one in Disneyland has to go down. The stretch goes down in Disneyland. Here it goes up. You're not in an elevator, despite what some people think. The one in Disneyland, you are in an elevator because you're going down to go underneath the railroad tracks of Disneyland. This one, if they really wanted to, they could have it so both doors are open at the same time. You could just walk straight through. They're on the same level. So, little fun fact there. I hope I didn't ruin anything for anything. Let's head out of the Haunted Mansion, though. If anyone has any questions while we go through here, again, send your questions to the chat room. I still haven't finished my dinner. It's like just staring at me over there. I'm also getting kind of nasally right now. Holy cow. So let's continue. So when we are continuing going down towards the exit, or not the exit, but out of Liberty Square and going towards Frontierland, the first thing that we're going to pass is the Counting House. The Counting House is a place where you can actually apply for a Chase Visa card. Ooh. Not a whole lot of other little details here. But right next to that, we do have the Liberty Bell Riverboat. Now, the Liberty Bell Riverboat, like I said earlier, was not originally called the Liberty Bell Riverboat. In fact, it was called the the Admiral Joe Fowler. Was it the Admiral Joe Fowler first or the other one first? Now I have to go through and look at my details. This is a really good book, by the way. Just a second. Whoa. I don't like all the fireworks here. The Admiral Joe Fowler, which would open up on the second day of the park, and then the other one was going to be the Richard F. Irvine would open up 2 years later. So what would happen is they originally had it. So this was the Admiral Joe Fowler, and then the Richard F. Irvine. And then if you go on the ferry boats that go back and forth of the Magic Kingdom, now you are probably thinking, wait a minute, but those are called the Admiral Joe Fowler and the Richard F. Irvine. And you're right, they are right now, but originally those were called the Magic Kingdom 1 and the Magic Kingdom 2, and the Magic Kingdom 3 would eventually open up later on. And then eventually what they would do is they would have it so there was two different boats that were going around the rivers of America in form of what we currently go on for the Liberty Tree Riverboat, or the Liberty Treehouse, the Liberty Bell Riverboat. But originally you would have the two different ones that would go around. Eventually in 1979, there would be a terrible accident that would happen with the Admiral Joe Fowler, causing it to never be able to operate again. So then the Richard F. Irvine would be the only one, and they decided that it's a weird name to have, so they switched it to the Liberty Bell Riverboat. So that is how we became the Liberty Bell Riverboat. There are a few different things that are on the track that I think are really, really interesting, and I think most people should pay attention to. But the most important one is when you were going through and you're going past the Native American village, about 3/4 of the way through, you will notice that the boat does a whistle. Beep, beep. Now, this whistle is actually signifying that it is coming back to the port to the other boat that would be at the port. But like I said, we have not had both of them on the track since the late 1970s. But at the same time, this is just one of those things that had never disappeared from the original script. So when you're going through, you will have the whistles blowing, and it is actually a little nod to the other boat to start getting out of the way because we're coming in for a land. So even though things change, some things never change, as they say in Frozen 2. When we get off of the Liberty Bell riverboat, we have a few other things that I want to pay attention to. The next one that I really want to take a look at is going to be right across the street, which is going to be the Liberty Tree Tavern. Hands down, without a doubt, one of my favorite restaurants anywhere in Walt Disney World. Actually, I would put it at number 2, right after Ohana. It's just, it's so good. Thanksgiving meal with turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green beans. Oh, it's so good. I haven't had it in like 4 days. It's been a rough 4 days. So the Liberty Tree Tavern is made up of multiple different rooms. My nose is getting so much more nasally as the thing's going on. So my friends that are in town right now, I've got 2 sets of friends in town. We all know each other, so it's been great. But there's a group of 10 of us that have been hanging out at the parks all the time. But the one set has a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the 1-year-old, his nostrils are just constantly, and it's exciting for me, but at the same time, that's why I'm getting nasally. He wants me to hold him all the time, so I've been like holding him constantly, and then now I think I'm getting like, so I apologize that my voice is getting more nasally as the night goes on here, but that's what happens when you have to hold a 1-year-old all day long, and we're having fun, so that's all that matters. So Liberty Tree Tavern, right across the way, it's going to be broken up into multiple different rooms. Now, if you go inside the restaurant, you'll have rooms that are themed around Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Martha and George Washington, and it is put in that way, Martha and George, not George and Martha, and then the Betsy Ross room, and then a few other rooms as well. Now, all of these different rooms pay tribute to, of course, famous historical people. However, one of my favorite little details inside of this restaurant is the fact that one thing in each one of these rooms actually belonged to someone from that specific room. So, for instance, if you go into the George and Martha or Martha and George Washington room, you will find different things on the wall. One of the things is a bed warmer, and one of these things is these things is a bed warmer, and that is supposed to symbolize the fact that George Washington would have died because he did not, wear a jacket outside one day. True story. In addition to that, we can find plans for Mount Vernon, the place where the Washington family actually took up residency. But in addition to all these things, we have the real things that are actually found in the rooms. One of my favorite ones is going to be in the Benjamin Franklin room. We have the Farmer's Almanac, something that Benjamin Franklin actually worked on. And one of them is an actual original Farmer's Almanac signed by Benjamin Franklin, and it's underneath a glass case. Now, everything else that's in this restaurant, a lot of the people don't even know what they are. However, there are different hints on what they might be because the cleaning crew at the end of the night has to go through and do certain things. And some of the things they have is just kind of weird. Like you have to polish this specific brass cup, but you don't have to worry about the rest of them because that's the actual original one from the person. So when you're going through, pay attention to the different things in the room. You might see that some things might be shinier. They might seem like they are more historic, and that's probably because they are. Now, even if you ask the cast members there, I've told this to them so many times, and every time they're like, wait, is that real? I'm like, yes, it's real. I read it in the book. And it was also confirmed by the Imagineers and the Walt Disney Archives when I talked to them about it. So it is a confirmed thing. They just, even some of the Imagineers just have no idea exactly what is the things that are the historic items. So it's a very interesting little thing that just kind of stands the test of time. After we leave Liberty Tree Tavern on our our left-hand side, as we exit, we can find our next and final restaurant, which is going to be the Diamond Horseshoe Restaurant. Exactly the same food as Liberty Tree Tavern, just not as cool of a setting. This was actually the home for a show for years and years and years, and eventually it became Goofy's Dancing Academy, where you could go down, you could have a hoedown with Goofy back in like 2004. And I used to go to it quite often because I was a custodian at the time, and I would just, walk in there to watch Goofy, Woody, Jesse, and Bullseye dancing away inside of this restaurant. And at that point, it wasn't a restaurant. Oh, my nose is all. So after we exit that area, on our left-hand side, we can find the bathrooms that are, again, like I said earlier, inside of Adventureland. But before you get to those windows, if you take a look to the left-hand side, you can find a display. In that display, you can actually find Goofy as a cowboy, paying tribute to the idea that he actually once did dance lessons with cowboy dance lessons inside of that restaurant. And I also want to point out at this point, because A lot of people that I talk to will talk about how Diamond Horseshoe is a reference to, or it's in Frontierland. It's not in Frontierland. It is inside of Liberty Square, because our transition from Liberty Square into Frontierland is probably, again, one of my favorite transitions anywhere in Walt Disney World. Because all night tonight we've been talking about things that are on the east coast of the United States, specifically more of the northeast coast. And we've had so many different details that all focus on things like the founding of America, the original 13 original colonies, and so much more. But when you're going from one area of the park to another area of the park, and both of them are set on actual true adventure and true life historical events, you need to have a little bit of historical relevancy too. So when you're going from Liberty Square to Frontierland, if you take a look at the ground, you will find a bridge. It is not a very obvious bridge. In fact, it just looks like a bunch of wooden planks on the ground, because it is just a bunch of little wooden planks on the ground. But when you go across this bridge, it's a bridge. If you go on either side of it, you might see that there is a little stream, and it's a very, very little stream going underneath the bridge. And that's because there is something that separates the East from the West in America that people would go from while going from the colonial times off into the frontier times, and that is none other than the Mississippi. So while you go across the bridge, you are actually going across a little version of the middle Mississippi, which of course is referred to as the Little Mississippi. And that, my friends, takes us out of Liberty Square and into the 4th of July. Okay, I'm gonna get a drink real quick because I need a drink. But I need you guys to start throwing it. If any of you have any questions in the comments, throw your questions in the comments. I think people have been either mesmerized or just kind of walked out of the room after turning me on. Either one I'm fine with. So if you have any questions, throw the questions into the comments. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes before we end the show. We did lose another subscriber, but I had a short that took off earlier, and like I've said before, whenever a short takes off, it usually estimates that you gain all these subscribers, and then as the night goes on, it like slowly kills off these subscribers. Not actually. I think the people are still alive. Maybe. I don't know. We have my last time on the boat. It was competing with the train horn. Reminded me of when 2 Disney cruise ships are together sounding their horns. Yes, I love when they do that. There's a lot of times where I try to get on the train at a specific time so I can actually have it so it's doing the battle. The boat will go, it'll set off every half hour on the hour and the half hour. And then Hall of Presidents goes every half hour on the quarter of the hour, or quarter after and quarter to hour. Is that the right way to say that? I don't know. We will see. The poop road is one of my favorite parts here. Look. Hey, Janine, how you doing? Should we do that? Oh, you know what? Here, we did not do that other one, too. This is, by the way, if you've not read it, this is probably one of my favorite books that I've ever read. Maybe not, or wrote, not read. Not like, in your face, other books. What's the other one that I want to say? Oh, the shutters. Let's read about we'll read the sewage because Candace just pointed out the sewage. What does a farm? This is a great one. I forgot about this. This just shows my humor in the books. What does a farm, a minefield, and Liberty Square all have in common? The phrase, watch where you're stepping, of course. What am I talking about exactly? Well, to sum it up, the pavement throughout the land. As you may have noticed, the majority of Liberty Square features the standard-looking red pavement. However, also scattered throughout the land is a path filled with what appears to be small little stones. These little stones form their own path that travel through the entire land. So what is it exactly? Keeping in mind that Liberty Square is set in the 1700s, there are a few things one may notice, with the most concerning being a lack of restrooms. Why is that? Well, in the 1700s, there was not such a thing as indoor plumbing, so people used the amazing invention known as the bucket. After this guy's a good writer. After doing that deed, sometimes I go years without reading my book sometimes, and then I go back and I'm like, this guy's a funny guy. After doing their deed, they would toss their little gift to the world onto the street, where it would meet with other sewage and head towards a sewer-like system at the bottom of a hill. So the moral of the story is, the next time you are in Liberty Square, watch where you're stepping. That's good stuff. Happy 4th of July. Hey, Matt, how you doing, buddy? Let's do the shutters though, because the shutters is another one of my favorite ones. If I don't have any other questions by the end of this one, then we are going to probably be wrapping this up. So throw it down there. Shutters. While walking throughout the land, take a look at some of the shutters found on the windows, mainly on the second floor. You may notice that some of these shutters appear to be drooping away from the window during the time of the Revolutionary War. The band of rebels standing up against the redcoats needed all the ammo they could obtain to help win the war. One solution that the colonists came up with was melting down the metal latches that held the shutters up and turning them into bullets. They would then replace these metal latches with ones made of leather. Since leather will eventually expand, the shutters found around towns during the Revolutionary War would begin to droop down due to a lack of support. The ones found here, which represent leather, however, are ironically made of metal. Okay, so anyways, that is going to be wrapping up our look at Liberty Square tonight. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. As always, I hope everyone out there has a very, very happy 4th of July. I will be at Epcot. I will most likely be doing at least one live stream of either the Voices of Liberty or the fireworks, or possibly both. I'm not really sure yet. I don't know exactly what my schedule is, but I'm going to be going over to over there to take a look at it. So if you want to see a stream and you're not busy, check it out. If you are with family and friends, maybe you can just say, hey, you know what the most patriotic thing you can do today is? Subscribe to Brent Dodge. And they'll be like, oh, that does sound American. And then they'll subscribe. And then we'll be like, one closer to 10,000. So thank you everyone for joining us. Are you going to be going to Magic Kingdom tomorrow? If yes, can you stream the fireworks? I'm going to be going to Epcot because I like the Epcot fireworks more than I like the Magic Kingdom fireworks on 4th of July. I've watched both of them multiple times throughout the years, but I prefer the Epcot ones. Or the guy who's out here, I don't like his fireworks very much. That's the worst of the three. But thank you everyone out there for joining us once again this week. Remember that anything can happen if you let it. Until next time, have a great week, everybody, and happy 4th of July. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good, my cheeks are just killing me. I just can't stand this guy.